Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Regis Philbin. As a result of his service to DAV and his fellow veterans, I'm honored to present an award from your fellow veterans at DAV. Let me read the citation, if I may. To all who see this commemoration, DAV is pleased to acknowledge the contributions of Regis Philbin. DAV is honored to recognize your extraordinary commitment to your fellow veterans who served and sacrificed on our behalf. Your selfless volunteerism on behalf of our nation's heroes as a spokesperson for our organization has significantly raised awareness about their plight and the free services DAV offers that empower them to lead high-quality lives with respect and dignity. By lending your celebrity to our cause, you have contributed immeasurably to efforts to build a new relationship between the public and the brave few who have defended the American way of life. You've reminded all that freedom is not free and created a bridge between those who have sacrificed and the patriotic citizens who wish to support them. On behalf of the 1.2 million of your fellow veterans, we thank you for your service, your dedication to helping us fulfill our promises to the men and women who served.
Thank you very much. I'm really happy to be here. I'm very impressed with what I've seen in the last couple of days. Wonderful speech you just made. We spent a little time yesterday together. And all of you folks coming out here, as you do every year for a meeting like this, really means a lot to the whole organization, I'm sure. Yeah, I was very offended when some of the hospitals that we read about in the news and heard about on the news just couldn't handle the veterans. These were people who were injured and wounded and who fought for this country and yet were overlooked or neglected. It made me crazy. I thought it was a disgrace. And now, just 2 nights ago, I heard that the president is going to put $16 billion aside to go to the veterans. Let's hope that works. Anyway, yes, I was in the U.S. Navy, but let me tell you something that happened to me in the service that changed my life. When I was 8 years old, Commander, I don't know about you, but I used to listen to the radio. There was no television in those days. You at least had television, I think. But anyway, I heard Bing Crosby singing a song. And it was a half hour of Crosby. And I don't know, as a little boy, I memorized all the words. I loved the sound of his voice. It was written during the tough days, the Depression, and people were losing a lot of hope, and the songwriters were writing songs for them, like Pennies from Heaven. You know that song? Every time it rains, it rains. Pennies from heaven. Come up here. Wait till you hear this. I'll sing the first, you sing along. Every time it rains, pennies from heaven. Don't you know each cloud contains pennies from heaven? All right, that's enough. That's enough. You know, you get these guys up here, they won't leave. So anyway, fell in love with Bing Crosby. And that's who I wanted to be. I wanted to be Bing Crosby. And my father was Irish, my mother was Italian, and my mother was so worried about what was going to happen. What do you want to be? Why don't you be a doctor? Why don't you be a lawyer? And how could I tell her I wanted to be Bing Crosby? It was ridiculous. So anyway, the years go by, and Bing is still singing, and my father, who was a Marine in the Marine Reserve before the war, and couldn't wait to get into the war, and then remained in the Marine Reserve after the war, was a wonderful guy. And over in the Pacific, the islands, he met Moose Krause, who played for Newt Rockne, and then was an assistant coach to Frank Leahy, and then ran the whole ship at Notre Dame. And that's how I got into Notre Dame. And so I loved it. My mother, of course, was terrified what I was going to do. And my father said, look, there's going to be another war after this. Why don't you join the NROTC that's out there at Notre Dame? Which I did. And the war did break out while I was there, and that was the Korean War. And sure, when I graduated, did that guy say hurry up? Or does he want to hear you sing again? We could do that too, you know. Anyway, so I went into the service, and it was terrific. I was at the LSM squadrons, and we were in and out. And sure enough, the war ended, I guess, a year and a half after I was in. But here's what I want to get to. That when we were ashore at the amphibious base, I would stay at a BOQ, and there were 2 Marine majors in there. Now, these guys, when they were in their teens, during the Depression, couldn't get into college. There was no jobs. There was no money for them. They joined the Marine Corps. During the World War II, on the islands, one of them especially on Guadalcanal, the lieutenant handling the platoon was shot dead. He received a battlefield commission. He was the sergeant at that time. His name was Kygel Flake. He was a very, very tough guy, but a great guy. The other guy was Bill Rankin, who then became the leader of the 1st Marine Supersonic Jet Squadron. He was not a pilot then, but he became a pilot after the war. So they had been through 2 wars, and I loved them. We had great times together. So now my mother wants to know what I'm going to do. I said, Mom, when I graduate from Notre Dame, I will tell you. Graduation day, they come, we walk across the campus. I've got a piano player in there, and I'm going to sing every time it rains, Pennies to my mother, because that's the only thing I can think of. I still want to be Bing Crosby, but I can't tell her that. So in the second verse that I did, my mother began to cry, and my father, who was also a boxer, began flexing his fists. So I took the hint and said, what the hell, am I crazy? Forget about Bing Crosby. I can't ever do it. Anyway, look, that's the way it was. Went into the service, a wonderful time, then came out and got involved in television. And every time I came down to Washington, my son Danny would be there. I'm very proud of this young man. He graduated from the Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C., and then spent 12 years working in various places. 9/11, I called down to Washington to see how he was doing, and he was at the Pentagon, and the Pentagon had just had a blast. Nobody knows who did that. But he's done an awful lot of work, and I'm very, very proud of him. And I thank you very much for coming today, Dan. Appreciate it. So now I'm getting out of the Navy. It's over. And I'm packing my bag, and I still don't know what I'm going to do. No faith in what I could do on television or anything. So they came in, Rankin came in and spent a little time with me, and then he went out. And he told Flake that, Regis is thinking about TV, but he doesn't think he can do it. So Flake came in. And he said to me, what are you going to do for the rest of your life? And I said, you know, Major, I don't know. I see television now, but I have nothing to offer them. And he said something to me that you should all remember, and I've remembered ever since. And when I get down to the dumps, I think about it. Don't you know you can do anything you want in this life? You've only got to want it bad enough. Now, do you want it? And I said, but Major, you don't understand. I have no talent. I have no experience. I didn't go in for any of this. He put his face right up to mine. He said, I said, do you want it? And for the first time in my life, I clicked my heels, gave him the salute, and said, yes, sir, I want it. And that's how it all started. So, if it wasn't for him, if it wasn't for being in the service and meeting people like that, I don't know where I'd be right now. But the funny part is that 15 years later, I was working with Joey Bishop on a late-night show opposite Johnny Carson. And every day, we would take a walk up Vine Street in Hollywood to relax Joey. And I would do all the talking. He would never talk. And one day, I ran out of something to say. So I said, Joey, let me ask you something. What did you want to be when you were a kid? And he said, when I was 10 years old, I'd stand on the street corners of Philadelphia, and I'd tell jokes, and people would fall down laughing. I wanted to be a comedian. And he became a comedian, good enough to hang around with Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin and Sammy Davis and all those guys and have this show. And he said, what did you want to be? I said, well, you know, it's funny, but when I was 8 years old, I wanted to be Bing Crosby. I heard all of his songs. I loved the way he sounded. He made me feel better. And I wanted to be him. 2 months later, Bing Crosby is a guest on the show. He's sitting right between Joey and me, and I was thrilled. They wanted Bing to sing, but they didn't know how to ask him because it's a talk show. So Joey said, Bing, you see this kid, he's a big fan. Why don't you sing a song to him? And Bing Crosby just looked at me and very easily sang Tora-Lura Lura from the old Going My Way. It was beautiful. And I said, what a thrill to have Bing Crosby. If I could only tell him what he means to me, you know. But it was a big thrill in my life. And then Bishop hadn't had enough. So he said, Regis, you know all of Bing Crosby's songs? Why don't you sing a song to Bing? And Crosby doesn't know what's going on. He turns, he looks at me. This is what I sang. Every time it rains,
Pennies from heaven.
Don't you know each cloud contains?
Pennies from heaven.
All right, that's enough. That's enough now. Here's the funny part of that. So anyway, that was a thrill, and Crosby hummed through it with me, and he was just fabulous. Next day, I get a telegram from Mercury Records, 35 Wacker Drive, Chicago. Would you like to do an album of Bing Crosby songs? Now they tell me, you know? So I take it to Joey Bishop, and he got a little jealous, I think, and he read the telegram, and he said, somebody's playing a joke on you. And he ripped up the telegram. The next day, the guy called me and said, well, what is it, yes or no? I said, yeah, I'll try it, I'll do it. And so that's how that phase of my life began, and just singing that song with Bing. So I tell you, it's been a great life. And one other thing happened on the Bishop show, and that is during the late 60s, there was a lot of friction and chaos in different cities in America. People unhappy with everything. And so one night, Bishop told everybody about he's tired of hearing about it, but he wants to know what the young people of America are going to do about it. Regis, go down into the audience and find somebody and ask them, what are your plans? What are you going to do for this country? What are you going to do for yourself? Took the microphone, went down into the audience. There was a young kid there, about 17 years old. He stood up. I said, well, you heard what Joey said. He wants to know what you wanted to be when you grow up, or how you're going to help our country, what you want to do. And this kid just stared at me. He couldn't answer me. And I said to myself, my God, I see myself, because I couldn't answer anybody. I couldn't tell anybody what I wanted. It'd be ridiculous. So I said, look, just relax for a minute and think, what is it that you're going to be doing like 10 years from now? He wanted to, he couldn't do it. He sat down, I moved on. I felt sorry for him. 30 years later, I went to see a preview movie in New York. Somebody came up to me and said, somebody wants to talk to you on stage. I went up on stage, there was a big crowd, and I waited, and then I said, oh, well, another time maybe, and I started to walk away, and this voice said, Regis, wait a minute, I want to tell you something. So this man came over and he said, 30 years ago, I went to see the Joey Bishop show, and you came down to the audience, and you asked me what I wanted to do for myself, for my country, and I couldn't tell you. I said, wait a minute, I don't remember a lot of things, but that night I remembered, because I was thinking of myself as I was asking you. We couldn't make the statement to anybody. He said, right, he said. And every time now that I see you, I just pinch myself in my heart for not telling you what I wanted to do. And I said, same thing happened to me. Anyway, good luck, goodbye. And that guy's name was Steven Spielberg. So you see what happens. So what you should ask yourself when you're feeling a little, like the world's against you, what Kygala Flake said to me. And tell yourself, yes, you can do it, and you will do it. And thank you all very much. I'm very impressed seeing all of you here. Believe me, DAV, just a great organization. I don't know what this country would do without it. Thank you very much. Thank you, buddy. You were great. Great singing, too. You sing well. I want to hear more.